everybody. Guess why I'm here today? It's part two, finally. The whole July month is coming to an end very fastly. I know I probably should not be smiling because this is a bad thing because, god damn it, I do not want to go back to school. But I have to. Apparently, we all have to. I have no choice. Wish I did. But anyway, before this month does finally come to an end, let's get to my final top 10 list of the month. My all-time favorite movies. Because remember, we had to wait 2 weeks when I did my part 1 of the top 20. Now it's time to do the top 10. So be happy about that. No, I'm probably sure all of you are still depressed. This does not make anybody any happier. But it does make me happy knowing I can finally get this list out of the way and we can continue. Like, we'll go back to posting one video per every weekend instead of going every other weekend. With that being said, this is my top 10 list of my all-time favorite movies. It's all my favorites, the 10 movies that I just seem to have a huge crush on the most. This list is all going to be a simple list for this 1 year, because remember I post one video per every year. Also remember that there's a small chance that this list will not be any different than the list I did last year. But try to treat it like a new list, because I'll have different little talks about it. Like, I'll talk a little more, have different speeching to it, all of it. Even if the list is 100% similar to the original list, just remember, I'm trying my best. Please don't judge me. I really am trying my best. And that being said, maybe we can hope for better that next year's list will actually have some different movies on there and not just be the same. Regardless, let's get the top 10 list started. Again. The Dark Knight. Oh, Batman. I've had a good talk about Batman before, a lot of times. You've seen my list of Spider-Man being my favorite Marvel superhero, but my favorite DC superhero, as well as who's pretty much my all-time favorite superhero ever, is Batman. But which Batman movie out of all the Batman movies I have seen is his best to me? Well, it's the one we all like to consider to be the best one, The Dark Knight. The movie that pretty much puts Batman's name into an R-rated material, which is strange because this movie still is rated PG-13, even though a lot of us would like to argue this could have been rated R, because it does feel like an R-rated Batman film. But we all love R-rated stuff, right? Probably just me, but Batman definitely deserved a little bit of R-ratingness when you got this kind of movie, because Batman's a pretty dark knight, okay? He always fights in the shadows. All of his villains can be creepy most of the times. That's what this movie does. It takes all this creepy stuff about Batman and makes it 100% creepier. Like Joker, for example. I mean, you see the Joker's design, you think this is just going to be a weird, comic, goofy Joker. But then he turns out not only goofy, but goofy in a scary way. A way that's just kind of too intense for people like me. Or what about someone like Two-Face, who we all know it can be scary when you think about his origins of having one fine face but another face is all messed up and gross, which pretty much changes his whole life. That's what the movie does, except it's creepier. Everything about this movie is just kind of something I always would imagine to want to see Batman through. I've always loved Batman. I've always thought it'd be nice to see Batman in a movie where all of his intense material could be even more intense. And that's what The Dark Knight does. It takes my favorite superhero of all time and makes him the way we all wanted to see him as. Forrest Gump. So now we're done talking about superheroes. Let's talk about actors. What is my favorite actor of all time? This hasn't been something I brought up recently, but to this day I'll say that my all-time favorite actor is Tom Hanks. Why? Because Tom Hanks is always into every film he does. Every time, he can portray any sort of genre, and his voice and portrayal makes it sound way more serious than it should. He could be in the 80s comedy and it will be perfect. He could be in the 90s drama and it will be perfect. Or maybe a 2000s animated film and it will be perfect. But then there's Forrest Gump, the book-to-film adaptation about a guy who seems to not fit in well because of his leg problems, but after he begins to learn running, his legs work fine, and then he starts a career going through many different paths. It's something that may sound like some sort of biography, but that's what made this movie so great. It's a made-up film that feels so good, like an actual biography, kind of like I don't know, something like Citizen Kane. Now, Citizen Kane feels like it's based on a true story, but it's really not. Well, that's what Forrest Gump is. It's a made-up tale that does feel true. Now, granted, I know you could be saying this is somewhat based on a true story, but not 100%. A lot of this was improvised, and that's the good thing. And it makes it even better is that they have Tom Hanks being that person. Because, like I said, Tom Hanks can do anything right. And when he does a drama like this, even when he talks in that Texan Western type weird voice, it still sounds serious when he talks. Like, yeah, that's just what makes him a great actor. When he's talking, whenever he talks or whenever he has facial expressions, all of them are serious looking, and they can sometimes make you forget if your movie is true or not. And that's what Forrest Gump's all about. It's a fun movie with so many different plot lines that you definitely probably won't be able to see in the real world in person. Jaws. Now let's get to my favorite director of all time. Yeah, we're going through a big path, aren't we? We went from favorite superhero of all time to favorite actor of all time. Now, who's my favorite director of all time? Steven Spielberg. Spielberg is my favorite director because of how iconic he can be. To all the many directors out there who make movies that could be better, they just don't have the kind of iconic material that Steven Spielberg puts together. He puts together stuff that just couldn't be any more iconic. There's stuff that I've always had fun reenacting or getting used to. And that's what Jaws is all about. It's a movie that can have so many iconic parts in it. There's the iconic poster we can see, the shark. There's the iconic quotes the movie has. So this is one of those films that I just kind of always like to look forward to watching during the summer, especially when I'm around going to the beach, because this movie does have that sort of iconic scheme to scare people to want to go in the water again. And believe me, that's even to this day I can still imagine something like this happening, because I actually recently read an article, like a magazine, because I bought a Jaws magazine. I recently heard that this was actually based on a true story of some sort. It's not fully a true story, but this movie does take some inspiration from a true story, and that just makes this somewhat even scarier. It's not really much in the horror genre as much as it's in the thriller genre, the summer thriller genre. And that's what makes it even more watchable. How's all that great material that you're just not going to see in any other shark movie. But this is my all-time favorite Steven Spielberg movie. Well, if there's any other on this list, then no. But if there isn't, it is. Toy Story 3. So, let's go on to this movie, okay? Toy Story, we all can relate to, because Toy Story is a movie. It's Pixar's most iconic film. You see, Pixar is, if you don't already know, is my all-time favorite animated company. I kind of talked about this a lot when I was doing my top 20 part. But now let's get to the top 10. And on the top 10, we have Toy Story 3 on here. Yeah, Toy Story is my favorite franchise out of the Pixar dialogue because I grew up with it. It was the one movie I grew up with the most. It's one movie I can have the most fun reenacting, the most fun thinking about. And which one out of all four of the movies is my favorite? Well, as I look through, I think I have to say my all-time favorite out of all four of these is the third one. Why? Well, I don't know. Why not? The third movie was really well of an idea when I first saw it come out. Because when it first came out, I was already getting into the Toy Story madness because I was like 5 or 4 when this came out, and I was really trying to get into the Toy Story stuff, not so I can get ready for the third movie, but because Mom I still remember that day where Mom took me to Blockbuster. We went and I saw a Toy Story DVD. I thought, that looks like something I could maybe get a kick out of, and I sure did get a kick out of it. All 3 of them, well, 2 of them until this came out. And then when this came out, I became Toy Story mad. I don't know, you probably will never understand how big I was of a fan of Toy Story. All I know is that this movie will always be iconic to me as a child. Just always will. Jurassic Park. So, yeah, unfortunately, Jaws is no longer my favorite Steven Spielberg movie right now. It's Jurassic Park. Well, for now, we'll have to see if there's any other on this list. Jurassic Park takes the idea that just seems a little more iconic of a made-up theme park run where you can see real-life dinosaurs. Now, this is one of the first ever movies to come out to take full advantage of CGI. Well, not really. CGI was something that fewer companies were really trying to get the push out of at the time. It was trying to be, most people were trying to just get one bit of it. They weren't trying to overuse it because they didn't want to make the movie look too bad. Because after Tron, which used CGI, kind of lost its touch of making us think it looks real, a lot of movie companies were just trying to put in CGI at simple different times, not fully. So movies like Terminator 2 just like had to throw in CGI at one bit of it. But when Jurassic Park came out, the CGI in it looked, I don't even know what to say, it was groundbreaking. And even compared to the CGI we see in movies today, it's groundbreaking. So yeah, that's what I think. I think the whole dinosaur gimmick isn't cheesy in this movie. It's really enjoyable. I actually know how this idea could sound like how cheesy it could sound to most people to think their kids will be fine watching it. But then the movie features scenes where dinosaurs eat humans, invade parks. That stuff is what makes parents realize they probably shouldn't have taken their kids to see the movie. But hey, what are they going to say about me? I'm always into this movie. I don't care what it has to offer. I'm loving it. I love Jurassic Park. I always will. It's the movie that gets my love for dinosaurs. And for now, if there isn't any other on this list, for now, this is Steven Spielberg's best. Ghostbusters. So, Ghostbusters is one of those rare kind of movies. It's a kind of movie that you mostly would not see on a top 10 favorite movie of all time list. You mostly see it like a top 20 or, I don't know, 50s or whatnot. But for me, this is in the top 5. And it is in the top 5 for a very, very interesting reason. The movie focuses on a simple comedy type story. It takes some fun comedy actors and puts them into this movie to give them some sort of treatment. Like, you have Bill Murray, who's funny. There's Dan Aykroyd, who we all enjoy. There's Harold Ramis. The movie contains a lot of funny people, as well as trying to put them in a movie that can be very serious. That's what I love about this movie. It takes a bunch of unserious actors and puts them in a story that can be pretty serious. One of those films that not only succeeds at making me laugh, but it succeeds at making me satisfied every minute of it. The entire movie has something satisfying for all of us. And if you don't agree with me, well, this is not your kind of video then, because everything about Ghostbusters just seems to be memorable to me. I can watch this movie every year and still not be tired of it at all. And that's pretty much how every movie on this list is, but this one, mainly in particular, just has that great taste to it. Back to the Future. Alright, now here is a movie that we all want to call their favorites of all time. It's all my favorites of all time for pretty good reasons. The film sets some different kind of tone. It sets an 80s tone, that's what it does. For those who aren't aware, the 80s is my all-time favorite decade of cinema. I wasn't born in the 80s, I never existed in the 80s. But I did manage to watch a lot of fun movies from the 80s, and this is one of them. And certainly is a classic, and it just seems very iconic for that time. The 80s was a time where everyone nowadays wants to talk about. And back then, we got movies like this, where a film like this can pretty much just represent that decade the best. Because it tells a fun story that I just can't imagine any other company having it told so more creative. It's a simple tale of a teenage boy who travels back into the 50s where he's trying to get his two parents to fall in love with each other after a mistake he made because he's an idiot. But regardless, this movie tells all that in such great tone. It pastes everything right. It tells everything right. It just seems like one of those films you just probably wouldn't think would have such big impact on paper. But then the movie really does become a huge deal for a lot of us. To this day, we all just want to keep thinking about this movie as well as the whole franchise. It's all just something we never want to get out of our heads and probably will never will. Especially me. Especially me. The Return of the King. A Lord of the Rings movie. In fact, a lot of people like to consider Lord of the Rings to be one of the greatest trilogies of all time. And I personally have to agree, this trilogy is pretty great. Lord of the Rings tells the story of a young boy named Frodo who is sent out on a quest to go destroy a ring in the fiery pits, but has to trapped throughout evil forces who continue to stop them on their journey. There's a lot of evil in this movie. There's a lot of heroic in this movie. Out of all three of the films, though, I think we all can agree Return of the King has all of what is needed. This movie just has everything I wanted to see in this trilogy. It has all the action, all the adventure, every little bit of what this franchise is meant for in it. It takes every detail we all love about the trilogy and just shoves it in the film the best. I mean, this movie wraps up pretty much everything we know from this whole trilogy. Not just from the movies, but from the books too. Because I'll have to be honest, I read the book, Return of the King, before I saw the movie, and from what I read, this ending for the movie is a lot better than the ending from the original book. Yeah, I went there. I really think this ending wraps everything up much better. It brings everything in full circle. The whole story can actually put a tear in my eye, I'll admit, because from how sad some of the moments can be to how epic most of the moments can be, there's just something this movie does that no other film I can think of would have done better for a trilogy like this. But it's summer free, remember that, because there are two movies apparently that are much better than this. So just keep that in mind. I think there are two movies out there that are better than this one. Just remember that. And The Avengers is one of them. So The Avengers, we all can agree, is a Marvel accomplishment. It's a comic book group of heroes who all create a big, epic journey throughout each book or cartoon, or especially movie. Because ever since the first Avengers movie came out, the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, became epic and huge. And now we are all the way up to here. We went through the first Avengers movie, which everyone loved, including me. Age of Ultron, which everyone loved, but I actually did not really like. I hated it, in fact, if you saw that video. Infinity War, which was a huge hit for all of us. And now we have the hit of all, Endgame. The final installment in the Avengers saga. It's only 4 movies, but still. This doesn't bring an end to the entirety of the MCU, but for the Avengers part, it doesn't conclude. And I'll be honest, it concludes it way better than I could have ever thought of. I don't think I would have ever had a good idea for this movie. This movie just seems to give out everything that was not meant that much. There was not that much meant for this to happen. We were supposed to see a fun conclusion in Infinity War, but apparently Endgame is what's going to finish all of this nonsense. And I'll tell you, it definitely finished all this nonsense, alright. Brought us back to what we needed throughout the MCU, so we don't have to worry about all this crap of losing heroes and getting all emotional throughout the years. Well, no, now they're all back, and now the MCU is full back in action. This year especially has been great for us because we got some MCU shows that have been coming out, and now we have 4 movies for this year. We just got Black Widow, now we're getting Shang-Chi, Eternals, and hopefully No Way Home. So where's that trailer, Sony? Anyway, Endgame is epic, always will be. MCU is a treasure. You all have heard me talk about way too much. I should talking about it, but I won't, because I love the MCU so much. It's that great. But gee, I sure wonder what number 1 is. Oh god, what is my favorite ever? My god, this is surprising. Star Wars?
how surprising is it? Let's be honest. I've talked about Star Wars a quadrillion times, not even. It's it's just that great of a movie. There's a whole ton of movies. They all of them may not be great, but the ones that are great are just my type. I have everything Star Wars if you know me. Like I'm known for a huge Star Wars fan base. Like there's just so much I can say about Star Wars to not make me forget it. I love it that much. It's a saga that I just will never ever stop thinking about. And the one movie that I will personally agree is the greatest out of all of them is this one, The Empire Strikes Back. The movie that takes more advantage focusing on the evil of the villainies and continues the story in a way that's just really well done. Bring all characters to where they need, seeing all the characters get involved into more trouble, as well as most all of them facing new challenges. Everything this movie does is what no other sequel I've seen before could do. It's one of those sequels that's actually continuing the story and actually giving us something new and better. Instead of, I don't know, either copying what we saw in the original or at that point just being as ridiculously lazy as possible. But no, we have Empire Strikes Back, which is the perfect sequel. Now, in all honesty, this film is great, but I just want to talk about how equally great A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, the original trilogy. All three movies in the original trilogy could be worthy of number one, but I'd choose one of them, so I went with this one because it's my favorite one. But those two movies, New Hope and Return of the Jedi, are also really great and would definitely fit in after this and before, not after. What I'm talking about. Those two movies would be better than Endgame. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, the whole trilogy basically. Empire Strikes Back mostly though. So yeah, my favorite movie of all time will always be treasured for all of us Star Wars fans out there, especially those who want to criticize the sequels more. Seriously, give them a break.
Okay, that was it. I did it. I actually did it. The top 10 list is over. So now that everything's done, my favorite movies of all time list is over. My entire channel is over. I'm done. I quit. We're out. I'm kidding. We have more videos coming. And even more, because now I'm posting one video per every weekend now. We're done with the summer. I am sad by all means. I know you are too. I will, I guess, have to chill, but you enjoy your life. Hopefully you'll be okay with this July ending and getting back to school and everything. I have not scheduled what my next video is going to be about, but hopefully it'll be something good. But even if it is, I doubt any of you are going to care because life still sucks. I don't know. Let's just go. But bye. Bye.